Hello, and welcome to my first novel recommendation. So, today I'm going to be talking about two books that are first in their series. So, we have The Ring here, and we have The Apothecary Diaries. And also, I didn't mean to say The Ring, it's just The Ring. It's just Ring. Sometimes, you mix it up with this book being as influential and famous as it is. I default to The Ring sometimes because it's like some of the movie names. But yeah, Ring is by Koji Suzuki, and The Apothecary Diaries is by Toko Shino. So first, I want to say before I start off, I really want to encourage people to keep buying and supporting these physical pieces of media because I don't think a lot of people grasp the significance of physical media compared to digital media. It's just a different it's just a different vibe. It's a different kind of presence when you have something, in your hand. On top of also just being, more accessible because a lot of these companies, digitally at least, in one button they can take something straight off the platform. And this goes not just for books, because I feel like books, out of any type of media or medium I should say, are the ones that'll probably stick around the longest. Like they've been around for centuries for a reason, so I mean they're going to be around. But like things like movies and video games, like recently with Sony having this acquisition about in I believe it's 2028, that the physical distribution of video games for the company are going to be completely severed. And that's very, very disheartening because what that's going to do is going to set a rhetoric that most likely is going to stretch to, I mean, Xbox is kind of already out of the game. I don't go too much into a rant of that, but, Nintendo might even do it. So that's already, a question in its own. But, I do acknowledge that, like, it kind of is a privilege to be able to buy most of the things physically, because like that's kind of just a personal preference of mine. I know most of my generation, I'm 23, the Gen Z, tend to read digitally more often. And now granted, this is a broad statement, but I have seen an influx of it, so that's just from my own perspective as an author myself. But yeah, it really is like it's a luxury, but like there's ways of getting these things cheaper. Like you don't have to buy it like full price at like 16 like 95. Like there's sales plenty of times at like Barnes and Noble or online. Like that's one where I'd say like, yeah, buy it online to get it shipped to you. That's a way to do it. But yeah, like don't let these die out, people. Like I don't know if I'm speaking to any choir here, but it's kind of just something that's been irking me more and more as I kind of buy or like consume the things I really love, because really the things I buy, particularly like with these videos, it's just stuff I particularly like and I like to talk about. So moving on to that, also I'll add, it's the last thing I'll add, I'm not gonna not acknowledge that, like, sometimes I've watched things on streaming services. Honestly, that's probably like 70% of the things I watch, if I'm being honest. But at the very least, if I really like it, beyond like maybe pirating it on some website or something, I'll make sure I get it. But that's just me. At the end of the day, that's just me. I just wanted to get that out the way because with these videos, I hope to encourage people to just seek these out physically. So yeah, let's talk about The Ring first. And I have another acknowledgement. So I really want to pay my respects to Koji Suzuki because he passed away this year at 68. And to be frank, we lost a legend in the horror world. I don't know if there was more he was supposed to do with his life. I mean, but I think he did. I say he did. He did a lot for, not only just the J horror space, to becoming like more international, but just overall on like stuff like psychological horror with like the Ring, the I keep saying the Ring series of books, because it's a trilogy. But yeah, like those books are immaculate. And like really, I think his style is like, it's just so mysterious and so authentic. Especially when it comes to, where most of them are set in, which is in Japan. You really can feel the cultural, difference, at least as an American, when you're reading these books. And low key, when we get to Apothecary, I'll talk about that as well, because that has some cultural influences too, that like, is very curious for me to like, research, soon after I'm reading it. But yeah, everything is really weaved in tastefully. But let's get to the meat and potatoes. So everyone, mostly everyone, I bet knows this book, or knows, the namesake, due to a lot of the movies and adaptations, and really every piece of media like Sadako, or just the Ring itself has been in, like, it's been parodied in like movies like Scary Movie and stuff. So it's well known. It's well known. It's not unknown like what the scenario is. You get a tape, you die in a few days, blah 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 blah. But I feel like the big difference with the original is, one, the setting, of course, but also just the characters, especially compared to the Japanese adaptation of this book. So this book stars Azakawa, and Azakawa, like he's a not reporter, he's a journalist. I know I missaid that, but he's a middle-aged journalist, and one day, his niece dies, and three other teenagers, because she's a part of the four, die, from a heart attack. Well, at least what it's summed up to be a heart attack at the very least. And since he has that connection as the uncle to this niece, he seeks out, what was the cause, or where were they last, and he finds he finds this holiday resort, and he asks the guy there. And he's like, oh yeah, these guys, these kids took this tape. If you want them, I don't know. And this blank tape, this plain looking tape, not blank tape. And he enters it into the geez, I forget what it's called, the tape box. Jeez, I know it's not called that. But he puts it in, and he sees a bunch of nightmares, video footage, and then it's soon by the end. So this is the big stark difference, and I'm not going to spoil too much, but this is the biggest stark difference from any other adaptation. Azakawa, it doesn't say by the end of the tape, oh, you're gonna die in this many days. He kind of just like finds it out. He kind of like tracks it down, and really surmises that, like, oh yeah, I'm most likely to die from this, and he tries to figure out a way to reverse the curse. Now, I think I'm remembering this right. I'm not gonna lie. I read this last year, reread it last year, I should say, and my brain is a little bit foggy. I tried reading up on some parts just to make sure, but I'm pretty sure I pieced it together. And then the third protagonist, Ryuji, also is kind of in the same boat, and he helps him out throughout the whole way. And this is it's really interesting how many differences. I mean, that's the beauty of adaptations at the end of the day, changing some small stuff and maybe improving upon, because there is some questionable stuff in this book. And when you read it, you'll realize that if you've seen other adaptations. But for a postmodern horror book, it still holds up so much. It is very tense. It's pretty scary. The storytelling for it all like really forces the readers to question everything that's going on. And it really, I think the best thing that Koji Suzuki like really ran home about, or aspire, well, not aspire, geez, my wording here, but really did the best is he always blurred the line really well when it came to science fiction and kind of the mythness of, you know, his stories. And just the pacing is just so good. Like every sentence structure is just, it's direct and it has meaning. And if you think it doesn't have meaning, it will eventually. And yeah, he really delves into like he, if you the thing with his stories, a lot of his stories, at least I've read so far, don't expect, at least from compared to the some certain adaptations, don't expect a lot of gore. Expect just a lot of psychological dread, and just the mystery and like psychological terror that like comes with, you know, possibly dying in a few days. And then also mysterious stuff happens over time that's pretty supernatural too. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. Without any spoilers, there's also like I want to point out this one difference because it always was curious to me. The Japanese adaptation switches a lot, but one of the main things that they switch is the dynamic between Ryuji and Asakawa. And the Japanese adaptation, which most people call Ringu, Asakawa is a ex-wife to Ryuji, which is really odd. But I do think the dynamic and changes is slightly more interesting. Even though in the book there is some interesting elements, I won't lie, I'm not spoil anything, but in the original book they're high school best friends, and yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. You can tell there's some tension, there's some growth pains between the two of them, and yeah, I think that's all I really wanted to say for that. But yeah, I definitely suggest reading Ring, not only just, you know, just to find out, you know, the legacy of this amazing franchise, and also just, you know, pay your respects to the man Koji Suzuki. Also, I want to say this this version that I have is like so dope. I love that it's like shaped like the tape. It's really, really cool. But let's move on. And God bless you, Koji Suzuki. I hope you rest in peace, man. And yeah. So, Apothecary Diaries. So, all in all, first, I want to say, amazing light novel. Especially compared to, and I'll be honest, I've only read a few, so I can't say I've read so many. But the few I've read of light novels, Apothecary Diaries definitely stands out as one of the best. And I think it's because of the immersion and also just the overall structure of the story. When I first was, you know, kind of getting curious of this series, a friend of mine told me, like, go into it thinking it kind of a detective's kind of Sherlock Holmes like mystery story. And like if you go into it that mindset, it really helps, and it really excels with that mindset. Not saying you don't have to, but like if you think of it that way, it really, like, you know, elevates the story, because it really is just a mystery, on top of like a bottle of mysteries, just to say, upon a pretty just overall good narrative of just the world of like an imperial China, and like all the intricacies and, you know, harsh life and dynamics of, you know, just that time frame. And it's a fictional imperial China. There's not a specific, you know, dynasty that's ever identified in this story, because most of the like rulers are, you know, fictional. But yeah, so the Apothecary Diaries is also kind of like The Ring. It has a few adaptations, and, you know, out of most light novels that have come out, actually there's a lot of light novel adaptations, so I can't really snuff those out. But Apothecary Diaries was really, really big when it got adapted into anime. I forget what year it was. I think it was 2019. Actually, I think I got that wrong. But it was really freaking big, and I won't lie, that's what got me curious in reading this book. That year, the the first season of the anime came out, and I was like, yeah, I need to read this story, because as soon as I finished that season, I was like, man, this is a good freaking story, and I'm really compelled to the main character of Mao Mao. And Mao Mao, unlike most protagonists, I'm not saying, there's not a protagonist like this, but she's a very interesting character. To the degree where she doesn't exactly have the most normal upbringing, and she's also like, she's an apothecary, like, the title says. She's a very, like, demure, very, non-self-righteous person. She's pretty detached a lot of the time, and it's because she grew up in the red light district, and she doesn't want to stand out a lot of the time because of the dangers of just being a young woman. But she's very perceptive. She's very like sorry, she's very, like, self-reliant. And through the story, well, at the beginning of the story, she's kidnapped when she's out in the field collecting some herbs, as she does. She's really, like, really emphasized the apothecary. She's really, really into the herb stuff. She's really, really into making medicines and dealing with poisons and such. But yeah, she gets kidnapped, and then she's put in the Imperial Palace as a servant. And through that, she's, at first, like, I'll just keep my head down, and I'll make sure that, I can get through my terms of service. And yeah, she does that up until she finds out some rumors that the consorts are pretty sick. They're not doing too well, and as an apothecary, she's naturally curious of what the possible illness is. So she tries to be discreet, and she writes a little note after figuring out what the cause is, which I won't say because I think it's really interesting. And I kind of am spoiling a part of it, but I'm just not saying certain elements. She finds out the sickness, and then one of the ladies, one of the consorts, the top consorts, she saved her and her child. And yeah, she's like, who got this note? And the overseer, Jinshi, who's kind of like the antagonist of the story, because this story tends to switch perspective sometimes. Every once in a while, it's mostly between just Mao Mao and Jinshi, but it also can switch sometimes to, like, Gao Shin or Liho. So it can, and also I might be pronouncing these names wrong, I won't lie. But yeah, it's sometimes they switch perspectives, sometimes they don't. But Lady Yokio, she from Pavilion, she tells Jinshi to get this girl, and Jinshi figures out that she can read and write, because this is like the main way he figures out who she is, because nobody else in the rear palace, or just in general in the Imperial Palace, most of the women there can't read or write, especially the lower servants. And that kind of just speaks to the overall hierarchy of the imperial court and the world. A lot of the peasants, don't have the ability to read or write. So, that's a fact that you'll find out later in the story. That's pretty important. But yeah, so Mao Mao gets picked out that she can read and write. And yes, so she becomes a confidant and lady in waiting to Jinshi and Lady Yokio. And just throughout the series, or at least this first book, let me not speak too broadly yet, but through this book, she is lady in waiting. She's a taste tester, and a lot of times she's kind of like the main source for like figuring out things. Like there's moments of a homicide, a possible mysterious ghost, a some weird poison happening throughout the water supply. Maybe there's a fire that keeps happening at a certain time of night. And it's just different mysteries that are like, like, that's why I say like kind of a Sherlock Holmes type of deal. There's always something happening where she has to use her knowledge as an apothecary, and also just her general perception compared to other people, because she's very intelligent. She's very, very eloquent, especially through the descriptions and writing. You'll always find out some new word after every page, which always makes me happy to see that. So like, she, as the narrator, this is a third person story, by the way, the Ring and the Apothecary Diaries, but through her narration, it's really, really brilliant writing. I really love how eloquent and how balanced a lot of the wording is a lot of time. And also on top of that, just like Ring, there is a lot of moments where you most likely, unless you're older, you maybe have some more experience, but at least for me, I wasn't sure like what certain terms meant, what certain just cultural moments were significant in the story, and what meant. This is the first thing for me, because I'm just a little naive on certain things. But like, I had no idea what a consort was, and I had no idea what a courtesan was, and I was just like, oh yeah, let me look that up, figure that out, because I had no idea. And of course, it's between the lines. They tell you, but like, there's certain moments where like they won't tell you things, and it'll be a little vague. So gives the reader some some insight to look up things, be a little investigative, just like Mau Mau. So yeah, Mau Mau is just overall, I think that's the best thing to go into this. I think Mau Mau's character is really very, very interesting, and the overall conflict stays pretty consistent in this book. There's always just some kind of mystery happening. We got to figure it out, blah 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 blah. And throughout the books, because there's about I think 17 volumes for this series. It's a lot of it's a lot of books, and as you can see, this is a pretty chunky book too. And they keep getting, I saw some that keep getting chunkier. There's at least 200 something pages. But yeah, just in this book, it's mostly just in the Imperial Palace. So you don't really go out too much, besides from the Red Light District a few moments. But through other books, there are more exploration throughout the world of the Apothecary Diaries. But with that being said, that's all I have to say for this. I really recommend this story. And yes, there are other ways, some would even probably say superior ways of consuming the story, since there are manga, there's an anime with a season 3 coming out for it. There's the movie adaptation that's coming out, which is a whole new story. There's a spin-off for Xiaolin, but that one's only a light novel, so I guess technically it's not too much different than this. But I think there is just some authenticity and also just some merit in, reading, some text, reading some words. Especially if you have a good imagination. It's very immersive, this story. And I think you'll have a good time reading this version. Well, this original version, if we're being clear, of this amazing, franchise. And if I'm being honest, I've only got up to book 3. So yeah, I'm not that far into my own journey reading the series. But when I do, I definitely look forward to talking about this more as I go on. But yeah, this series is great. Both of these books are great first books in the series, and I certainly suggest reading them. So have a blessed day. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.